Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
Hi, welcome back to the Prime Life podcast, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and people shaping the future of longevity. If you're interested in the future of retirement travel, longevity, innovation, and building solution that truly meets people where they are, this is the episode you won't want to miss. I'm Mary Crean. Our guest today is Andrew Motiwalla. He's the founder of The Good Life Abroad, a company that offers immersive travel experiences for people over 55 who want to live in Europe for a month or two. Andrew, welcome to Prime Life. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me. Sure. The Good Life Abroad, as you said, it's basically created to solve the dream people have of wanting to live in Europe or live abroad for an extended period of time. But there's so many things that go into it and pain points that cause people not to live out their dream. And so we created the Good Life Abroad to make it really simple to go live in Europe for a month or two and not have to worry about loneliness and health and not knowing the language and where to live and all these questions that make it a little challenging. And about me, I've been in the travel industry for 30 years and I've worked in a variety of types of travel. And one of the things that I heard throughout my career was people saying, I do tours, but isn't there something for retired people who have more time so that we don't have to be like rushing on the bus, off the bus, in the hotel, out of the hotel? We have time. Why can't we do something a little slower and more immersive? And that was one of the sparks for inspiration to lead to the Good Life Abroad.
Does that fit into why people would want to spend a month in the same location? How does that factor in what you just shared?
Yeah. What I've heard time and again is people have been to many of these major European cities before on a cruise or a tour, and it's sort of like a wine tasting. And you're like, oh yeah, I love all these different cities, but now I want to go back and drink the whole bottle. I want to go back to that one place and really immerse myself in it. It's interesting statistic. On average, Americans visit Florence, Italy for 2.5 days. And that's part of a see all of Italy in 2-week kind of tour. Florence is one of the most amazing cities on this planet. And you could easily spend a month there immersing yourself and getting deeper and deeper, whether you like art or you like history or you like food. Florence has it all and allows you to just go deeper and deeper. So I like that metaphor of the wine tasting or having the whole bottle. And I think perhaps in retirement, we now have time to explore our passions a little more fully. And so just sort of seeing Florence for a couple of days and seeing the greatest hits was great when we were maybe younger and didn't have as much time or taking the kids on a tour. But now that we're older, we can really dive in and explore our interests and passions.
So most of us describe retirement as somewhat slowing down, although I know lots of people who are retired, but they're really finding what their passion is after all these years. What does the phase look like when you talk about this expanded view of travel? What does it look like in practice?
In practice, I think it starts with thinking about what you want to get out of your retirement, right? Because it is this beautiful opportunity we have to do all the things we didn't have time to do before. And so whether maybe you were an accountant, but you have an interest in art, or you're a car salesman and you're interested in history. Now is the time to reinvent, to be the person and enjoy the things that you've always wanted to. So it's starting with that self-awareness, I think. What is it that I want to get out of it? Because then travel becomes sort of an accelerant, a way to go deeper into whatever it is you want to do. I think traveling with intention is really important versus sort of, oh, I just have to go and do this checklist travel, which is fine too. I just want to see some sites and kind of check off as many things as I can. But I think it can often be more fulfilling and help you along your journey in terms of self-realization to do travel with a little bit of intention. And I think what I've seen in our programs, for example, is exactly that. We had a gentleman who's an accountant and he retired, but now he has that question, like, what's my identity? I'm in retirement. I was an accountant, but I'm not an accountant anymore. Who am I? I'm not the guy who lives on the corner because I've downsized into a condo. So my identity was sort of in flux. But he had this passion for art. And he went to Florence with us. And before he even went on the program with us, he took a class at the local community college on Renaissance art. So you could see he had this curiosity about himself. He took the first step of a class at a local college, which is great. Then he went to Florence, the home of Renaissance art, and then immersed himself in that for a month. And he saw the city through a whole different lens because he had done some pre-reading, some pre-work before getting in there. And to me, that's a perfect example of someone who's not just going on a trip as a one-off, but really mapping out a path for himself to become a person who appreciates art. And he even started painting while he was in Florence, and he can continue to do so. And he's stayed in touch and told me about how much this trip really impacted him. So I give you just that as just one example, but everyone has something inside of them that they would like to do in retirement, and travel, especially slower travel, more intentional travel, can be the thing that helps you take that to the next level.
I saw something on LinkedIn. One of our former guests was on, and he was doing this whole cooking thing. It was in Italy. I know people were like, wow, that sounds really cool. So it reminded me of that example that you gave. What do you think people underestimate most about the emotional side of retirement?
Well, I think we become very comfortable as we go into retirement, because at that point, our kids have been more or less sorted out. We'll always be parents for those of us who are parents. I mean, that's not going away. We'll always worry about them. But for the most part, we've more or less have our financial house more or less sorted out. Things are comfortable. We have our routine. And so sometimes it's a little difficult to take the step to break out of that routine and push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. But what I found is that when you have a type of travel that does push you out of your comfort zone, in the case of The Good Life Abroad, living in a European city center is often very different from where most of our audience lives, suburban America or 55 plus communities or whatnot. So that pushing them out of their comfort zone is important. We don't want to break them, but we want them to learn to adapt. And we think that when you have travel where you learn new things and you're adapting to new things, and after a month, when you see, I've done that. I've just lived in downtown Lisbon, Portugal, for example, and you realize I navigate the public transportation, I navigate any sort of linguistic barriers, that actually gives them a sense of confidence. And I can do this. And if anything, the world becomes more open because you have these building blocks of confidence that empower you to want to make the world your oyster, truly. And of course, you can always go back home to your comfortable nest. But that pushing out of the comfort zone, I think, is really important to build confidence, to build adaptability, which is kind of important as we get older.
So we always know some people that are travelers. And so some of the hesitation with public transportation or maybe perhaps different languages, that's fine for them. But there are others who haven't had the time to travel. So now they're traveling. How do you work with individuals who are a little bit more, who need baby steps, who are a little bit fearful and not sure that they can manage this on their own, especially if they stay more than a few weeks? Like, what does your company do, or how do you help them?
I think that's exactly that's the gap we bridge at The Good Life Abroad. Is the really adventurous people might just go off and rent an Airbnb apartment on their own and go off and just live there. And what we do is we provide, it's still an independent experience. We're providing an apartment, of course, but we're also providing much more than that. We're providing community activities and events. It's not a tour where every day is booked with things, but there's activities throughout the month. There are touch points when the community comes together and you connect, you make new friends. And all the fellow travelers in our cohort are living either in the same building as you or in the same neighborhood as you. And we have a local support person. We call them a community manager, who's there almost as a concierge to help guide you. And they're accessible Monday through Friday on 9 to 5 on text message as well. And we've had people say, I think I'm turned around in the public transit system. I'm here. This is what I see. Can you help me? And they're like, oh, yes. Or I want to go away for the weekend. What's the best way to get there? So we provide independence and independent experience, but we have safety nets. We have your community of fellow travelers, our local community manager, and we provide travel medical insurance. So you have health insurance while you're traveling. It's independent, but with a lot of support.
I'm glad you brought that up about health insurance because that's one thing that had crossed my mind. Actually, it's funny you should mention that. My uncle, who's 90 years old, who's still working a few days a week, believe it or not, he was saying to my mom, I'm thinking about going to Italy and living there for X amount of time, not permanently. And I thought, what if he runs into a situation with his health, which he does have some health challenges, even though he's still working? That was top of mind for me. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm sure there are some people thinking about that. Great to travel, but what if something happens when I'm abroad? What do I do? Are there some safety nets, et cetera? So it sounds like you map almost everything out for individuals.
All the pain points, we did some research and we did a lot of surveying of asking people. The first question was, who out there has wanted to live abroad for an extended period of time? And then those people, we surveyed, why haven't you done it? And we got
Mhm.
all the different concerns and pain points. And especially what you said in your example, for many solo travelers, just like, what if I fall and I'm alone
Right.
in my apartment? Like nobody, literally no one will know I'm in trouble.
Right.
So going on your program, Andrew, it feels so nice to know there's someone out there who's thinking about me, who knows where I'm living, who's
Yeah.
got my back, who I can
Right.
call, and has a whole safety plan in place. And so, yeah, we try to map out all those pain points and say, how can we solve for that? And a big part of it was community. Community makes it fun. It helps avoid loneliness. It makes it feel safer and more enjoyable. Because sometimes, going abroad, even if you're married and you have a partner, and you go somewhere for a month, it's like, okay, you've heard all my jokes before. It'd be nice to kind of meet some other people. And that's where the community of fellow travelers comes in so handy. Is like, oh, you like history as well, and you meet people that have shared interests, and you can go off and explore things, with new people or whatnot. I had the group where one gentleman, his wife was really into cathedrals, and he did not like cathedrals. And he's like, I came on this program so she can meet other people and they can go see cathedrals together, and I don't have to.
I love that. I love that example. Actually, I was going to ask you, what does that community look like? And you kind of just described it. If someone's interested in going to look at cathedrals, they can do that. But what's your secret sauce in terms of making those connections or helping people make those connections that perhaps work?
Yeah, that's it exactly. Is community is our secret sauce. So let's start with the group size. It's about on average 16 people. It can be 20 or so. It could be 10, but on average 16. And it's cohort based, so everyone arrives on the same day. In fact, even before they arrive, we meet on Zoom, everyone in that cohort with your local community manager. So you're starting to put a name and a face together. The
Got
first full day, we do orientation, kind of health and safety, public transit, all the normal things you would imagine. We break. We come back together that night, and our community manager is called a community manager for a reason. Their job is to facilitate that sense of community. And that first evening at our welcome party, it's usually like a rooftop bar with food and drinks and beautiful views. We are actually facilitating getting to know each other. So we do things like, okay, who's interested in art, for example, or who here has an artistic background? And we do different icebreakers so that you can not just say, oh, you're from Florida, I'm from Florida, we should be friends, but rather
hmm
that quiet person over there that I didn't even talk to, they have some of the same interests as I do. And it serves two purposes. One, it's for the group to connect with each other in a more deep and meaningful way, but also for our community manager to learn what are the interests of my group. Because what they'll do, because these are local people, and they will then be suggesting to the group, I know there's a bunch of jazz lovers. The university, there's a jazz recital with a bunch of students doing a jazz recital. I mean, how cool is that? That's something you wouldn't find just going on Google and,
Right.
jazz bars. And so then suddenly the people in our group, hey, let's go to the jazz concert. Sounds great. Oh, let's have a happy hour beforehand. And then what happens over the course of the month is that community, it starts to take on a life of its own. And they start doing all sorts of activities that they coordinate amongst themselves. And we use WhatsApp, the text messaging platform, that has a community feature where you can create affinity groups in there. And so you'll see affinity groups pop up. Book club. I'm having a book club in my apartment. Runners. Who wants to go running with me in the morning? Cathedral lovers. And that fills the whole month full of activities and fun and community and friendships.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I could see that people that go on these trips, if you will, these extended trips, probably connect in a way that they make lifelong friends. And who knows, they could go on another trip together. Again, I'm calling it a trip, but it's really more than that. Since you've been doing this work, and as we get to the end of our segment today, what's been most enjoyable for you?
I think it's exactly what you were leading towards right now is the friendship, but it's because going back to my comment earlier around your identity in retirement, the accountant who's no longer working as an accountant, etc., the PTA parent who's no longer has kids in school and not part of the PTA. What we find is the people who come to spend a month or two living in one place abroad, these are a unique group of folks. And what they have in common is a core value around cultural appreciation and culture, and that comes through cultural immersion and travel. And so what we see time and again is people are saying, I found my tribe. I found my tribe. It's not that we live in the same neighborhood that we have things in common. It's we actually hold a core value that's very important in our lives. We all have this, and this love of culture and cultural appreciation. That is what leads to these groups being filled with very interesting people. They're often very well traveled. They've been on many tours and cruises, maybe even independent travel, but it attracts a unique type of person. And when our people meet each other, like, wow, we're going to be friends. And
That's
then I
nice.
love hearing the stories of, and then we finished the program, and then we met up in the United States together and we did stuff. Now we're planning the next trip with you. And then we met new friends in that program, and it sort of snowballs, and it's really beautiful. So I think for me, it helps redefine retirement for many people. And retirement becomes a time when the world is opening up, not closing down, when your friend networks are growing and not shrinking, and you're fully living and feeling joy in your life at the highest levels.
I love what you just said, because there is often a notion that as you get older, your friend groups sometimes shrink, and sometimes they do. But this is a way to expand them and to connect with people, as you said, that truly have similar interests. Our last question we ask all of our guests, which is, you could do anything you want at this point in your life. Why are you doing what you're doing today, Andrew, with your company? What's your why?
I'm building this for myself. I'm very selfish. I'm building out the good life abroad because this is how I want to spend my retirement years. That and learning to cook, but that feeds into my travel side of things because more time in Italy and Spain and France is all going to help improve my cooking. So I'm doing this for myself because this is how I want to live my life.
It's a great answer. And that's smart too, because you're doing what you love. That's your passion, and you are sharing your passion with others. And isn't that a great identity? If an individual wants to get in touch with you or an organization, what's the best way?
Go to Google and just type in The Good Life Abroad, and we should come out at the top, or it's thegoodlifeabroad.com. And if you wanted to get in touch with me directly, it's Andrew at thegoodlifeabroad.com. Very easy.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you for spending time with me today, because I know you're a busy guy, and it's been my pleasure to speak with you and learn more about the good life abroad. For our listeners, thank you for listening, and share our podcast with your friends and your colleagues. And we hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mary.